Hey guys, Chili B here again. Today we're walking through the October newsletter. It says September here, but I'm pretty sure he means October. So the newsletter is basically broken up into two parts. There's a review of September's progress, and then towards the end there's plans for the future. So we'll start off with the review. There's updates for 5 major products in this review. The first one is the rebranding. He says this has been their most important and time-consuming process or product, and he apologises for the lack of updates regarding it, but I think he's actually done pretty well. It's only been 2 weeks since the last update, and they've made a ton of progress, so I don't think there's too much to apologise for. Basically, the story of the rebranding is that they've onboarded Corpuccino, but he didn't really have a proper onboarding process just because everyone was super busy. But he's gotten working on Ethlizards, and he started by building off the base of the original Ethlizards branding, taking inspiration from the underground lizard lounge sign that was in neon. And these are a picture of his first few iterations. I'm definitely no designer, but these look pretty good to me. I like the color palette, and I think the lizard footprint is a nice little touch and looks pretty cute. But getting feedback from Kieran, Kamau realized that he hadn't done enough work on brand discovery and understanding the branding. And as James was using this first iteration of the redesign, they became a bit less confident with what they had, and they felt like the color palette and style wasn't quite right. So basically they fast-tracked a branding workshop with no standing, and now feel a lot more confident with the vision and where the design's going. Here's a more up-to-date design board of where they're going. The color palette looks pretty similar to me, but they've got a few extra design options for the logo. And the designs themselves are pretty simple and they stand out, so I can imagine them going pretty well in lots of different situations and locations. So I'm pretty excited to see what they finish up with. Because of the delay caused by working off the original branding and then going back and rebranding everything, they estimate there'll be about a week's worth of delays, and the final branding rework will be on October the 8th, which is not far away at all, only about 5 days. So that was the rebranding. And now to smoothlining the fundraising process, he says specs and groundwork have been done and they're waiting for the final rebranding before they release it. So that was rebranding. And now the next 2 products are smoothlining the fundraising process and the website revamp. So both of these have been waiting for the rebrand to be finalized before these things can be finished off. But the specs and the groundwork for the smoothlining process, he says, are basically done, and it's just waiting for the website to launch before this launches, because I guess a lot of the mechanisms for the fundraising process are built into the website. The plan is currently that it'll be launched before October 20th. And same thing for the website, launched before October 20th, simultaneously with the smoothlining process. But the delay hasn't been a waste of time. He says Jumbo's been speccing out a lot of additional functionality for the website. Unique holder dashboards, maybe something to do with voting, and they make sure to note that they've been hearing what we've been saying in the community, and they've been taking that into account as they've been building. And there's a few nice pics of the current website in progress with the unfinished branding so far, but it's looking pretty nice. The 4th product is staking, and he says to expect an LIP or feature doc around mid-October. And that'll be interesting to think about when it comes out. And he mentions that he's been working with Alien as well to deliver extra features, and it looks like those are going to be possible. Not super sure what those features are, but I'm sure they're going to be good. One more interesting point on this, he says he's crafted a variety of new features that bring incentives to stakers, ERC 998. So I hadn't heard of ERC 998 before, so I had to look it up. And this is from the ethereum.org website for EIP 998. First thing to note is that this EIP is not recommended for general use or implementation, as it's likely going to change. So that makes me think that whatever KML is planning to implement, it's probably going to be a system that is only interoperable within the Ethlizards ecosystem, and maybe with really close partners, maybe like Alan or something. Because if the EIP is not finalized, there's no way we can rely on it being interoperable outside of that ecosystem. So what is EIP 998? It's an extension of the ERC 721 standard to enable ERC 721 tokens to own other ERC 721 tokens and ERC 20 tokens. And also, it's an extension of the ERC 20 and ERC 223 standards to enable ERC 20 and ERC 223 tokens to be owned by ERC 721 tokens. But understanding this at a simple level, ERC 721 is the NFT standard, ERC 20 is the regular fungible token standard, and ERC 223 is an extension of the ERC 20 standard, the fungible token standard, which does a few things, but one of them, and probably the main thing, is that it provides a mechanism for avoiding the loss of tokens because they've been accidentally sent to a smart contract address as opposed to a wallet address. So that was all a bit of a mouthful. But basically, from my understanding, ERC 998 is an extension of the NFT standard and the regular fungible token standard to allow both NFTs and fungible tokens to be owned by NFTs. So it's a pretty interesting standard, but he's being pretty mysterious about what he's going to use it for. My guess for how they're going to use it is that it might be something to do with how direct deal flow will be passed on to staked lizards, or maybe it's got something to do with delegating votes to staked lizards so that you don't have to have your cold wallet on hand to be able to vote. Maybe you can delegate it to some sort of sub NFT and vote through that. But the sub NFT would still be owned by the staked lizard, so you can't sell off the sub NFT or something like that. Again, I'm not technical, but it's definitely got me curious as to what they've got up their sleeves. So I'm looking forward to the reveal. And then the fifth product is our merch, which is the plushies at the moment. The designs are finalized and he's mentioning the unboxing experience again, which is pretty exciting. And he gives a shout out to Roger for all his work in it. So looking forward to that too. Moving on to the community review. He gives us three main pillars for Ethlizards, and they are product, financials, and community. And if you notice in his newsletter, he actually breaks it up into product review, community review, and then financials review as well. So I think they're starting to think along these frameworks, so probably good for us to get that into our heads too. The community update for this newsletter is that they've taken on feedback that they've become too hyper-focused on delivering products and they've actually neglected the community aspect a bit too much. So moving forward, they're trying to establish a formal structure for community contributors, which we'll see a bit later on in the newsletter. And they're aiming to have dedicated managers and contributors for each significant section of the community. And again, we'll see that a bit later. But the sum of it is expect more fun stuff, more community vibes in the Ethlizards, which is cool. The financials review, the investments are still going. So we've still got 4 deals in the works and they're all coming along nicely. All have their own issues, but basically on the way. He says direct deal flow has been moved to staking, so maybe that is something to do with the ERC 998 stuff, or maybe not. But basically there's a couple of direct deals in the pipeline and they'll launch alongside staking if possible. So that's on the way too. And in terms of cash flows, the team's moved to a new level of transparency. So Kmao has a link to the Ethlizards Notion website, where the Ethlizards balance sheet and its income and expenditure is all listed, we can see all the payroll expenses, development expenses, operation expenses, all listed here, open for anyone to see. The main thing to notice is we're about 19,000 in deficit for the month, but probably nothing to be too worried about because we are just starting out. We're basically 1 month in, and so far our only income is from royalties. So once we have more streams of income, maybe the next thing to come in would be merch. I'm assuming investment income is still a while away. But as we develop more income streams, this should hopefully balance out. And eventually our income will be higher than our expenditure. So I'm sure the team is definitely keeping an eye on it. I'll be keeping an eye on it too, but nothing to be worried about in this early stage of the project. Okay, moving on to the second half. That was the review of everything they've done so far, and now planning for the next quarter. Thinking on narrative and focus, their initial plans was to do some pretty big marketing after the rebranding was done, but they've decided to delay that now for two main reasons. The first one is the treasury is down and the markets aren't very strong at the moment. So at the peak, the treasury was over $1 million, and now it's down to about 600,000 just because of the downturn. Second reason is they don't think it's the right time to push marketing. A lot of the products they want to market won't be finished in time for the original marketing schedule. I think this is a pretty good decision. We definitely are in a bear market, and it's pretty rare and pretty unlikely for any project to pump during a bear market, even with strong marketing and strong fundamentals. The way I look at it is that marketing really attracts retail, and looking at things from a really broad perspective, retail's basically gone. But the people still around are the other serious projects that are still building in the bear. So I think in the bear market, focusing on connections with other projects and building out our own project so that other projects will want to work with us is way more productive than trying to attract the little amount of retail money that's floating around now. So in my opinion, probably a very good move, and shows that they're thinking carefully about how to spend funds, and they're not making decisions just to make it look like they're making progress, but they're making genuine progress. So he goes on to say, our focus for the next quarter is to release a slew of infrastructure changes, updates, and products for the lizards. And this is the part that stood out to me, and focus on rewarding loyal community members. So I have no idea what that means, but it sounds very good. But he wants to make it clear that this doesn't mean they won't be marketing ever. It's just they won't be marketing in the near future. But there definitely are plans, and they will push for marketing when the time's right. And importantly, and this is kind of to the business-to-business work that I was speaking about before, this narrative doesn't affect investments. So as long as we're working on connecting to other projects, as long as we're building out infrastructure that lets projects connect with us more easily and want to connect with us more, as long as we're building out as a community, then I think this is a really good move. Also, I love that KML is looking outside of the Western world, specifically to Korea, to find new projects, make new connections, bring in new deals, all that sort of stuff. At least in the crypto circles that I'm in, it seems to be a really huge focus on the Western world. I know we live in the Western world, or probably most people listening to this live in the Western world, but there's a ton of support and a ton of desire for crypto things and Gamefi and DeFi outside of the Western world. So if we can tap into that, I think that gives us a leg up on a lot of our competition. Thinking about budgeting for the future, as we mentioned when we looked at the financials, we're currently spending more than we're making. So the team's looking at ways to reduce costs and increase inflows. And they're consistently making sure we have enough runway by converting ETH to USDC, which is great. Head over to the article to read through all the details of the roadmap. But a couple of things that have really stood out to me is a lot of the things they talked about in the last newsletter are looking to be delivered in October. So in this month, a lot of that should be out the door, which is amazingly quick in my perspective. It looks like in phase 2, which is November, governance is the main focus, which will shake things up a bit, and I'll be really interested to see where that goes. And then phase 3, we get the staking launch, hopefully, and 2 new products, which I don't think we've even heard of yet. So the next couple of months are packed, and most of the things they're working on right now will already be delivered by then. But check out the article for yourself to read through all the roadmap details. The next thing they have in the article is the formalized contributor structure, which we mentioned further up in the community section. It looks like what they're focusing on is mostly in this green circle, and specifically probably this orange box, the liaison lizards, this red box, the alpha lizards, and then the green box, which is the librarian lizards. So there's no details on that yet. That's all coming out soon, but if any of that sounds a little bit interesting to you, keep an eye out for what they release next. Then some really good news, we've got Corpuccino coming on as our in-house designer, or already in as our in-house designer. And the last thing he mentions is most of you guys were probably around for the Discord hack that we had a little while ago. There was no damage done, no lizards were lost. Came out, got onto it within minutes, really, which was amazing. And as a result, they're going to undergo an overhaul of Discord security and permissions. And finishing it all off, Kamal says, "It's been a turbulent, exhausting, but overall rewarding month, and I've come up with a year's worth of concepts and products I'd love to build out for the Ethlizards community. I implore you to watch closely because I'm confident will surprise you." So far he's been delivering from day one, and that makes me look forward to whatever surprise he's got in store. So I'll be watching closely and optimistically. Jumping back to my spreadsheet to wrap up this update, you can see that there's lots of green again. So they're basically making progress on everything they've said they're going to make progress on. And the only thing that's slightly delayed is the council rework, but they told us that was going to be delayed already. So the guys are really delivering. That's another killer update from them. And I hope this has helped fill you guys in with everything that's happening. So let me know what you're excited about in the comments below, and give me a like and subscribe if this has been helpful to you. And I'll see you next time.